Back in the Sierra, fir forests predominant here at the very moment. Jeffrey's around too, and many other things. This won't be about the Tahoe side. This will be about the east side. Decent day plus long tour of the east side ahead. Expecting it to be lush-ish. See if that prediction's borne out. Back in the Sierra after Memorial Day nuttiness. It's a great lonely day in the sinks yesterday on the holiday in question. Get some new tall white pines to talk about. 5-needled pines. Look at that. Large stature and rather large cones. Not a white pine or a 5-needled pine that we've seen before. It's exciting. Talk more with cones in hand about all of the new conifers in the Sierra. Of course, the next 3-4 days. Jeffrey's encountering for a second time. Jeffrey's, unmistakable in the exceeding length of their needles. Usually quite tall stature. Greater than ponderosas, but somewhat similar. And what do we got side by side here? It's a lodgepole. P. contorta. Very upright stature. Got 2 needles per fascicle, and they're on the shorter side, 5 centimeters more or less. These cones are on the stouter and shorter side as well. A stately pine of tall mountains. More common towards the Pacific Northwest and Rockies, and probably into the true Sierra out there as well. This is a dominant tree above Denver, though, for example, and here it is above Reno. Lagoon's looking a little shallow. I feel good for free. Once spake my homeless buddy, nearly normal Bob. Somewhere kind of near these parts. These deeper and darker forests of the southern Carson Range heights seem dominated by lodgepoles for the most part. Some firs speckled in throughout. Arctostaphylos on the ground. Try to keep an eye on these. Cedars. Different from juniper. Now it doesn't produce berries, or berry-like cones, I should say. Though those look like they could at first be turned into so-called juniper berries. But there's chambers developing on them at the same time. They're going to expand and harden. Those chambers will open. These are high up, above 8,000 feet. Now we're going down to the bottom. And we'll come up via a different canyon. Really, look at the trees along the way. My hope is that these will be more developed lower down, where they presumably also occur. Chilly wind up here. Have a warmer night somewhere down there. And during the warmer day of tomorrow, climb back up into this high country. It's Genoa Peak again. Move along towards the higher Sierra of Nevada, meaning the greater Mount Rose area. It'll be similar to here, yet more barren and exposed higher up, I believe, if memory serves. It's almost bristlecone-like, this cedar. Incredible. Jeffreys and cedars side by side. Some of the more impressive forests in the state. Many of them still getting snow, but not really on these south faces. See those north faces though. Maybe it's more firs on the north faces and more cedars on the south over here. Jeffreys. Some of these Jeffreys make ponderosas look small. Having gotten a decent sense of the higher forests by now. Not a full sense yet. Curious when these fade out, what exactly takes over below. Had my suspicions, but had never been in those foothills of the Nevada Sierra. It's a somewhat wet, for Nevada at least, mixed conifer forest up here. We've seen a lot of elements up close already. Lots of Jeffrey pines, lots of firs. Didn't really run into spruce, but they must be here. Got cedars. Got a lot of manzanita and chinkapins in the openings. Jeffrey pines are really common. High. Some of the sugar pines. Here's our branch-spined chinkapins. These Jeffreys, some of the greatest of all pines. That one, for example, it's reaching 100 feet, I'd say. That's the cone of the Jeffrey. Nearly a foot in some cases, probably exceeding a foot in some cases. There's a cluster of smaller ones. Dense Jeffrey forest here, also known as sugar pines. Pinus jeffreyi. Couple lone cercocarps suddenly. Amongst the predominance of manzanita and chinkapins. Continued dominance of Jeffreys down the south-facing slopes of Sierra Canyon. Trail down this canyon. I don't think there's a trail up the next one. Abies magnifica. That's flat and soft needles all spread out rather than curled upwards. There's 2 species of fir out here, at least. Lodgepoles disappeared pretty quickly once I left those higher ridges. Velvety, soft white mule's ear is coming back. Not quite here yet. Is there honking leaves coming out of the duff? A lot of the same still as I descend. More things starting to appear though. It's early spring still for most of them. Meaning in leaf only. No major changes in the forest tone. Yes, a ferny understory in the state of Nevada. Some brackens barely come up. Run into seeps. Some smaller cones suddenly. It looks like there's real ponderosas now. Those are not Jeffrey cones. Although, there's a Jeffrey cone. Little bristle pointed inwards, tip of the scales. Pointed outwards on ponderosas. Getting dark, I'm not sure if you can see that well, but both species are right here. Quite a world of evergreens. Bottoming out, there's still Jeffreys and cedars. The drier, more exposed vegetation has taken over. Birches are commingling with manzanitas. Tequilas are appearing. Stragglers, phacelias, and sagebrush. They are associated paintbrushes. Scarcely above the Carson Valley here. Ponderosas have replaced many of the Jeffreys. There are their smaller cones. Which the prickle faces outwards, by the way. A bit different down here. A bit more resembling other parts of Nevada. Circocarps. And Kekelias. Kekela is different though. Sagebrush. One of the larger phacelias evading me right now. I think that's the same one up near northern Elko though. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish the ponderosas from the Jeffreys now, but I think these are all ponderosas down here. For the most part, some of those north-facing slope pines will be Jeffreys. There they are, Jeffreys. Yeah. Yep. So lots of ponderosas and lots of Jeffreys. A little bit hard to tell the difference down here. Well, they're literally side by side. Cones are very diagnostic though. Annual manzanitas starting to wrap up soon for the season. A few more exciting things. Clarkias. A little less abundant though. I have to show you some Clarkias before we start heading up next canyon over there. Aliciellas and Gillias. Cryptanthas. There's the Clarkias. Four petals and sepals. Inferior ovary. Clarkias are upright annual evening primroses. Nevada, I think basically elsewhere too. Annuals with rather showy flowers for annuals in this family. Tylismia's got some showy flowered annuals, sure. Other things like Geophytum, Hippolobium. Who's in focus there? Not so much. Something about the drooping flower buds also shouts evening primrose. opposite leaves. These drooping flower buds are very chilesmia-like. Heavily purpled Asclepias come into life. Very pretty, crimson almost. A lot in blossom down this slope. Up in the sterile forests, almost nothing for long stretches. Haven't seen the kikila yet. It's bugging me a little bit. I'll lose my chances soon. Now I understand that it's a very similar forest type from low to high out here, the Carson Range in the Sierra of Nevada. Jeffrey's common up and down, cedars present up and down, not necessarily common. Ponderosas coming into the picture lower down here. Maybe even, I would think, some pinions in some areas, so I haven't run into any. And circocarps, whereas much higher up it's lodgepoles and white pines rather than ponderosas and potentially pinions. Don't you think there's got to be a pinion or two in all that sagebrush with pinions just across the valley? Wouldn't you think? Those short needles see ponderosa to me, surrounded by several Jeffreys. Firs out here too, from low to high. Just not particularly as common down here as they were, more in the middle. It's Genoa out there, first town of Nevada. Genoa Peak with its tower above that way. And lots of modern settlement down there too. Carson City out there. Here we very clearly have ponderosas, similar length needles, different cones. Heading back up via this canyon system. There will not be a trail much longer though, I don't believe at least. Head back up to those lodgepole forests, why don't we? Got my sharp eyes out for flowering kikilas along the way. Lots of Persia. It's a deep and watery gulch, so maybe challenging to follow upwards, but fairly committed at this point. There's always alternative ways up in a bind. A waterfall in Nevada. Too good to pass up a cold shower. A towering birch here. Got some Cornus sericea here. Dogwoods. Opposite leaves and not quite flowering yet. They're developing on the apices, the tops. Here's a cedars. Exceptional girth and magnitude. Some here that are much bigger than my foot. Currently battling my way up this duff. Thick and slippery. Tequila's still climbing up along with me. Much different seeing it in such thick duff than the barren, loose slopes below. It's not any more precocious up here. They must flower into June sometime. They must make a fine summer shrub of these parts. Tiny streamlets supporting a different vegetation. Alders, willows, dogwoods. A bit of a pain to get through, especially when roses are involved. Dark. Here's a streamlet. Arctostaphylos nevadensis. One of two ground sprawling shrub species. The other one being common and widespread kinnikinic. Virchi. So this is a Sierran species. It's hinted at in the epithet, nevadensis. It refers to species described from the Sierra Nevada, not from Nevada per se. Getting back up to the Carson Crest soon. Head north from here, maybe stop along the shores of Tahoe itself, hit some of the high country around Mount Rose, and it's time to head northeast. Topping out and moving on.